What?
Hello, everyone. So in this room, we don't have the microphone working, so I'll just say as loud as I can. Hopefully, you can listen. And then here we have the TypeScript workshop, and I'm Erica. I'm going to present this. So TypeScript is like kind of similar to JavaScript, and it's developed and maintained by Microsoft and first released in 2012. What's the difference between TypeScript and JavaScript? It's actually a superset of JavaScript, and that adds more types to it. So everything that works in JavaScript actually also works in TypeScript. So why should I care? TypeScript is very, very popular, and I think everyone who chooses to use JavaScript will eventually use TypeScript. So let's see an example of JavaScript. This is a very simple code, a very simple function. And as you can see, you can infer from this code, it takes two numbers and it returns the sum of these two numbers. But what if someone call this function by adding the parameters like one and a string? What will happen after this? Anyone knows? Yeah.
Screen, I think. So you want to look.
One hello. Yes. Great. So no error will comes from this, but it's actually wrong because it's not the function's intention. And then in TypeScript, what we can do is we type the two parameters. We say these two parameters are all numbers, and also the return value will be a number. In this case, what will happen after someone calls this function? It will immediately give you an arrow, a type arrow, and you can just change this. So the main benefits will be TypeScript. TypeScript can catch bug early, and then it provides better developer experience, and also it can integrate with existing JavaScript. So every JavaScript valid JavaScript code can be using in TypeScript. Let's see. These are the types in TypeScript. So if you have used JavaScript, you may know there's no unknown or any or some of these types in JavaScript. But in TypeScript, there are other types, and it's really, really useful. We can see, we'll see in the later on. And now, so how we annotate the variables with types. These are the way we declare a variable in TypeScript. So you just use a colon and then the type of the variable. Okay, so let's go to the next slides. So everything we can declare in this way. So for a function, what we usually have for a function, it will be parameters and maybe a return value. Some functions don't return anything. And in TypeScript, we can explicitly say the type of the parameters and also the return value. So because this workshop will be project-based, so these are some examples that we use with React.js. So let's see, this will be a component in React. some of you might don't really have experience with React, but let's have a look together. So here is actually a React component, but it has similar structure to a usual function. But can you observe the difference between a function and a component? Anyone can observe anything is different? Okay. So here's just a little bit information about React. So usually in React, in a React component, you return HTML, right? And the other thing is you see the parameters here. It's actually an object. It's been wrapped with a curly bracket, right? So why is that? It's because it's the React component. It only takes a props object. So we can also annotate all the types here. Yeah, React. And then we have another way to type all the props. Is we separate all the types into a tag. Like we define a type for the props. Does it make sense? Everyone catch up? Okay. So in the separate type, it's very clear that we can know what type is the props, and we can maybe debug easily and refactor the components easily. So here's another example of using the backend response. Let's say, okay, we have a backend API here. It will be a GET request from this URL. Then it has a pass variable, a parameter variable ID. And the response example will be we get from all the information of a room ID something. Right, so for example, this is for room ID 10. And then we get some of the properties. So how do we call this API from the front end? Anyone knows what kind of situation we will be using this API endpoint? Like you get the information for a room, right? So you will be calling this endpoint in a room page, like a page only for this room. Like to get the information to fill in the information for this room. Oh, am I too quiet? Okay. So here on the left side is the response from the API endpoint. On the right side, here is just an example of calling this API, but you can implement in different ways. It's fine. So in the front end, we define a type for the response. It's like the same structure as the API response. And then we have the function to fetch the response. So in the function, we can also define the types for the parameter and the return value. So when do we use this API call? Yeah, I already told you guys. It's in the page. So the page should also take a parameter of the ID. So in the component, in the React component, it will be a props that only has a property of this ID. So let's see. So we have the code for the React components for this page. We only also take the ID as the property, and then we return. We can use everything here. As you can see, we use because the room, we already defined the response, so we can just use everything from the data we get. It's like we call the property. So there are some benefits, as you can see. We can ensure the components receive the right props, and we can prevent runtime errors because everything, if you make any type error, it will just tell you immediately before you run the code. And it can make refactoring safe and improves code readability. Okay, here's another important thing in TypeScript. We have two ways, like two objects for types. The first one is type alias. The second one is interface. So we can declare a type or an interface of an object. And it actually has the similar structure. But why in TypeScript they have like two different things is because we use it in some a little bit different. Yeah, both type and interface are used to define the structure of objects. So here's an example for Bloom booking system, like the client, one of the client projects. We have two components here. These are React components. There are two different style of the room card. Do you guys can like say any difference between these two room card? It's easy to tell, right? This one only has like the name of the room, the location, and the button. And the other one has different, just the text, like name, location, mantis, and sys number. So these two room card, you can like assume they have different props. What we are going to implement with TypeScript. So for this one, okay, so I'll just show you. Because we have the button, so this will be a click event. It's similar, same in the JavaScript. So because we just do this in a component, this component have to take get a function, like a parameter for the function of what we do for this button. So onBook will be a function that trigger this event, and the other things are just the text. And also because we already have the type for the room that we get from the API endpoint, we already have the name and the location from this backend API. So what we can use this type, the room card will just take a room property that has the room type. Then your code will be like easier to see. Everything like it's not like everything, like the information you need will always be returned from like this type of response. And then you can also define the type for this function. Oh, also, here we have the interface room card one props. We can also use type keyword to define the type alias for this object. It's actually, you can use both of them. The difference, I would talking about the difference afterwards. So anything can use an interface to define its type, can generally also use a type alias. Okay. So for this room card, what do you think would be the property? Choose the big thing. Anyone in the front row? You already have all of this information from that API response. What do you think? Okay. So the props of this component will only be the room that has the room type, same type of the API response. Let's compare these two room components. I think the difference is very easy to tell. Like the room card one props takes one more property, one more field. So what we can do in TypeScript, if something like this happens, we can use interface to declare this to type object and use extends keyword just to add an extra field. So this is why we use interface for these two props. But you can also just do two types for each one is also fine. But it's just easier to debug. So let's see the difference between type alias and interface. First one, they can also they can both describe object shapes, and then interface can easily extend. And for type, it has like something interface can't do. It can define something like this. It can define unions, intersections, and primitives. And also, only interface can do declaration merging. It's like if you use like this interface, the same interface, and then it will be merging all the fields together. So here also, this one will be, I just introduced one of the utility types because we don't have much time and maybe you need time to like digest a little bit. So this is one of the utility types that I think is very, very useful. It's called record. It's only in TypeScript. As you know, like a dictionary is a like key value pair. This is actually like this defines the types for the dictionary, like a dictionary. So it can define the type of the key and also the type of the value. So whenever, if you have like a dictionary structure, data structure that has the same type for the keys and same type for the values, you can use record. So we can see from this example, if I want to check the availability of a room by the date. So I just like so I will have a variable that has this structure, and then I can just annotate the variable with the record. Anyone can like understand this? Sorry. If I say too fast, you can say like I think it's fine, right? Okay. So here are some of the other utility types that are like kind of useful, but I didn't use it as often as record. So you can see more in the Typescript's website. So in our project, what should be explicitly typed? Actually, you can just use JavaScript. It's also valid, but it's better for us to use TypeScript, like to use type annotation to like make the collaboration easier. Like we are all working in a project, so some people might like it has like auto documentation, like you can easily know what the type of the variables are. So firstly, the function parameters is different than okay, it's the same. And the function return types and API response, like I show you in the example, and also the component props, it's in React, and some shared models or objects. What does that mean? Like for example, if you have a form, like you send a form to the backend, and the form structure should be defined in the backend. So in the front end, usually you also define a type for this request body. Do you know what I mean? Okay. The last one is the data structures, of course. Okay, common mistakes when you use TypeScript. I've encountered this a lot of times. So firstly, using any. So some of the message that VS Code may give you is like the suggest. It may tell you maybe you can use any, but don't use any. So it's not a good way to solve the problem. And the second one will be not handling null and defined. It's usually happened when you get a response from the backend API, and sometimes there are some field that is null or undefined. So you have to check with the backend that what kind of response you have. The third one is forgetting to specify types for function returns. I did it a lot because I just don't really specify the return, the type of the return value, but it's actually not good. So if you specify the function returns, people who's calling this function will also get the type suggestion. So it's very, very important that you specify the types for the return value. Okay, the last one. I have a recommendation for you. Like it's a VS Code extension. It's called Pretty TypeScript Arrows. So after you use this will be the suggestion TypeScript give you, like a reminder. But it's really hard to read. After you use this, it will become nicer. So that should be it. That's all of this workshop. Feel free to ask any questions. Yeah. Any questions? Okay. How to stop this?
We turn the lights on as well. Hey,
Yeah. Was it good?
it was good.
Thanks.
It was solid.
Works fine, by the way. I think you guys just didn't